Isn't what's been happening of late just going back to the old playbook that Pyongyang has used, i.e. you up the ante, you perhaps conduct some missile tests, and then you go as far as blowing up that joint liaison office, and you do that in return for a lessening of sanctions or perhaps even aid in order to back down and get to the status quo ante?
Clearly, what North Korean regime is looking for is sanctions relief. Kim Jong-un made it very clear during the Hanoi summit that he wanted sanctions relief. And then he was upset with South Korea for, President Moon talked about inter-Korea engagement and all of that, but South Korea was not able to deliver on the sanctions relief. So Kim expressed displeasure with South Korea by blowing up this liaison office at Kaesong, punishing the South Korean government. But what he's really looking for is splitting Seoul from Washington and then continuing the pressure. And I do believe they will escalate against South Korea eventually and the United States to get sanctions relief and then to increase, escalation to get leverage for future negotiations, whether it's President Trump's second term or with President Biden.
So the thing is, John Bolton, of course, has come up with this controversial book in which he contends that Donald Trump didn't actually want to do a deal at all, and he just wanted the optics of meeting Kim Jong-un in Singapore, first of all, and then, of course, those other meetings too here. What do you make of those comments, and do they make sense to you? And would that, in your view, also perhaps mean why these actions of late have been born out of frustration?
Yes, I mean, I read Bolton's book. He had 2 chapters on North Korea, 1 on Singapore, and then Hanoi in the DMZ meetings. He made it very clear that President Trump was mostly concerned about theater, great show, the dramatics, the theatrics, and he was willing to sign on to this substance-free Singapore declaration, mostly out of theater. And during the Hanoi summit too, the reason why President Trump walked out was because he figured that this was a bigger drama. Bolton says that it was bigger drama that he thought. He stayed up all night because of Michael Cohen's testimony. He was very upset by it. And he thought if he's not going to have a big deal with North Korea, small deal was not worth it. And, bigger drama was for him to walk away. And the DMZ was, again, for theater. So, of course, this is very disconcerting for the South Koreans and the North Koreans too. But again, the North Koreans' key issue right now for North Korea is to continue to escalate tensions because they need to either get concessions, which in terms of sanctions relief, or to increase leverage for future negotiations.
Well, absolutely, Sue. It's quite instructive that you have that chessboard behind you as well, because that's essentially perhaps what's going on in some ways. So could we see further escalation here? Could we see the whole dynamic change as we head towards the November US presidential elections too?
I do think actually Kim is a very strategic thinker. He's mapping all this out and he's playing this good cop, bad cop with his sister, making all the threats and escalating tensions. And he's kind of holding on to potential last minute, maybe 11th hour deal with Trump, or again, to increase leverage for future negotiations with President Trump's second term or Biden first term. But I do think, we should not underestimate Kim. I do think he's a strategic thinker. He's being very rational in terms of what he wants, what his goals are, what his strategies are. And I don't think we, the United States, are necessarily prepared for that because President Trump is clearly was more interested in, the theatrics rather than substance of denuclearization of North Korea or that concern about security of South Korea.
A long-range missile test seems to be one of the options for Kim at this stage in terms of upping the ante. What do you think the likelihood of that is, and what would the Trump administration's response be?
Well, there are actually a number of things that North Koreans can do to escalate tensions besides a long-range missile test, an ICBM test, or even a nuclear test. They could, for example, show their strategic weapon that Kim vowed that the world would witness is, let's say, submarine-launched ballistic missile, for example. I think Kim is going to be very calculating about this because he knows that ICBM in a nuclear test is a threshold for or red line for President Trump, and Kim doesn't want to invite more sanctions or potential military action from the United States. So there are a number of things that North Koreans can do that's short of ICBM and nuclear tests. So what Kim is going to most likely do is continually dial up pressure. Now, I do think it is possible that he may resort to an ICBM or nuclear test, let's say in October, right before the November election, because Kim may calculate that that's too late, that's too short of a period for President Trump to return to fire and fury of 2017 or any kind of military action.
We've seen Kim's sister put into a position of greater prominence in the last few weeks, particularly with this pretty fiery rhetoric towards the South. What do you make of that? What does that tell us about the power structure in North Korea, particularly after, of course, we had Kim Jong-un disappear off the stage for a period of time?
You're absolutely right. I think, Kim Yo-jong, the sister's status has absolutely gone up. She's ascending. She's no longer just quietly standing by her brother's side, carrying ashtrays and pens and whatnot. But the shifting of her role to more of a substantive role to policy role in inter-Korea relations and escalating tensions with South Korea is quite interesting, particularly in light of the fact that Kim Jong-un's health, there's lingering concerns about his health. We still don't know why he was absent for a prolonged period of time from the public, why he did not participate or on this April 15th event commemorating his grandfather's birthday, which is a very significant holiday in North Korea, which obviously caused all the speculation and hype about Kim Jong-un's ill health. So the timing of the shifting of her role is quite interesting. I do think that Kim Jong-un is potentially grooming her to be a successor. But certainly for right now, he is playing this bad cop, good cop with her. And she has really emerged as Kim Jong-un's alter ego. And she is definitely the second most important person in North Korea besides Kim Jong-un.